Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining us. This is Nicole with Topaz, and I'm super excited to have Ron Martinsen back with us. Hey Ron.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Ron is here to demonstrate his favorite features of his favorite Topaz products in our Topaz Bundle. Some of the products he'll be demonstrating are Adjust, DeNoise, Black and White Effects, ReMask, Lens Effects Detail, and more. Obviously, you can see we have a lot of a lot of tools in our bundle, so I'm excited to see how he's using them. Ron Martinsen is a well-known international photographer and photo editing blogger. His blog is at ronmartblog.com. And while his images are featured in magazines and trade shows around the world, his real passion is photography and photo editing education. His blog has enjoyed millions of visitors with topics ranging from gear, plugins, and book reviews. And his special discounts on the hottest products in the industry, which I have used as well, have saved his readers well over $1 million. Ron is the author of Printing 101 Notebook, an introduction to fine art photography printing, as well as two other best-selling books. Ron has worked alongside Brian Peterson at his Seattle workshop, and he was recently a co-host on Scott Kelby's show, The Grid. So we are super happy to have him back with us today, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to him so we can go ahead and get started.
Cool. Thanks, Nicole.
Yeah.
That's getting my screen going. And can you see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So hi, thanks everyone for joining us. I'm Ron Martinsen. Hopefully some of you have already seen my blog, ronmartblog.com. And just a little quick overview about the blog, just for those who might want to visit it after the webinar. Don't forget there's this little top area up here where you can navigate around the site to get to different tabs. And the area over here on the right is where I keep all my popular articles and reviews and so on. And so be sure to check it out after the show. And today what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about the bundle. One of the questions that I get from people is about, well, should I buy an individual product or should I buy the bundle? And generally when you do the math, you quickly see the bundle's the way to go. But then the next question I get is, well, what are some of these other apps in here? I don't really see much on them, like Lens Effects, for example. And then is ReMask really any good? And I get a lot of these common questions. And so what I thought I would do for this demo is actually go through and show a little bit. It's going to be real high level. I could spend an entire webinar on any one app. So I can't really go too deep on some things, but I'll try as quick as I can to give you some ideas about some of these apps and just show you how I use them in practical everyday processing. So we're going to start here with this image of Asia, which I took over in Japan. It's actually kind of typically what you would get on a cloudy day. It's not super vibrant, a little bit hazy, not very interesting. So let's go ahead and show you my workflow about how I would edit a file like this. So we'll start with the original image, and what I do is I'll generally duplicate the layer. I'll come in and rename what I'm going to do, and I'm going to actually use Lens Effects on this one. A lot of times I'll do it after the fact. But what I'll do is I'll come up here to my filters, Topaz Labs, go down to Lens Effects, and then we're going to go play around in here. First of all, we need to see this image needs some more contrast. So hey, lo and behold, if I go to the XF Add Adjustment, there's this preset called More Contrast. A lot of you guys will do this in Lightroom, I realize that, but I'm showing you some features that they have in here that, when combined, can be really helpful. So if you've done some of your adjustments in Lightroom already, that's okay. Some of the stuff that I'm talking about here will still apply. So hang on there. And then, of course, you can always go and adjust these. And something that Topaz has that's a little bit different than Lightroom is a saturation boost, which I'll get into a little bit more detail later. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and apply the more contrast. And people ask me, what's the difference between this apply and then hitting OK? Why do I need one versus the other? And apply says take that preset that we've just selected and commit that so that I can go choose other presets. Some other products make it a little bit more obvious by creating layers. There's no visual layers here, so I know that for those who may have multiple products, that might be a little bit confusing, but just in your mind, imagine that they're creating little imaginary layers behind the scenes. You can't go back unless you just reset all, so that's the one downside. So next up, I'm going to do a little bit of saturation. So let's add some more saturation. Now, right off the bat, this is a little bit garish. You know, we don't want that quite that much saturation. So we're going to come over here into our image adjustments and bring that down to about here. Gives us, you know, nice fall colors, decent look. And then I'll talk a little bit more later about these trees and what we can do about that. And people say, well, how do you come up with these values? You know, when I come in, I'll just usually just drag things back and forth real quickly and see what it does. And so don't get too caught up on, you know, did he write down, did he do 0.12 or did he do 0.15? This is really, you know, this is your image when you're editing. But you know, don't be afraid to drag it around. It doesn't hurt anything. And so I'm going to apply that. So we got a little more saturation. And I know it's kind of funny that I'm using an app called Lens Effects to do my photo editing. But honestly, I like some of the presets they have in here. So don't let the name throw you. It's actually more than just Lens Effects. You have some of those Lens Effects features up here, but stay with me. Now, one really cool thing is that you see that I probably should have used a graduated neutral density filter when I shot this. But lo and behold, they have that inside Lens Effects. And so I can come in here and say, you know what? I wish that the top quarter was a little bit darker. So I can apply that. And you notice that all this area here got, you know, less hazy looking. Excuse me. And then now I say, you know, I wish I could just do a little bit more just on the top. I don't want to do this area again. I would like to do the top a little bit more. Oh, excuse me. I was actually supposed to do it the other way around. So I did 1/2 for the top half and then 1/4 for the bottom half. Sorry, I got it out of order there. My apologies for that. And so ultimately what I did was I did a 1/2 and then a 1/4 to kind of get this whole area a little bit less hazy looking. And so when you're dealing with cityscapes and landscapes, you're kind of dealing with that haze at the top of the image, this is a really great feature. And you can use bottom quarter, left quarter, right quarter, so on. There's a lot of different options for you here. And so now I've got it less hazy and kind of look a little bit, well, actually we'll do it when we go back to Photoshop. I'll show you the before and after. And then let's see, we're going to go ahead and choose Apply. And I'm going to come back to Lens Effects again in a minute, but we'll see just right off the bat, before and after, we've got this image looking better. And again, a lot of these I realize you can do in Lightroom. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then let's go into create a little layer mask here. And I'm realizing that it's a little bit hot in these trees. I like the overall image, but it's maybe a little bit too much on that one, just that little one spot. So what I do is I'll create a brush that's black, and I'll set the opacity to about 30%. And then I'll just come along and paint over that and just kind of remove a little bit of that effect. And the reason why I mention that is that for all these products that we're using, sometimes you may love what it does to most of the image, but there's just one little spot that maybe something wasn't quite right. Don't forget that you can always just apply it and then use a layer mask to tone it down. The other thing is that sometimes we'll use a plugin, we're all excited, we do a lot, we get back to the image and think, maybe I overcooked that a little bit. I probably shouldn't have done quite so much. You can also lower the layer opacity, which is a nice feature to use when you're in Photoshop. Just to kind of dial it down in case you felt like you did too much. For now, I'm going to just leave it at 100%. And then what I'm going to do now is we're going to go use ReMask, because the other issue we have here is this sky is kind of boring. I'm not going to put in fake clouds, but I do want to do something just to make it look a little bit better than it does. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go Filter, ReMask. And if you're not familiar with ReMask, ooh, that's weird. Oh, I know why, I'm sorry. I still have, yeah, let's go ahead and do this. Let's create a layer just so we make sure we're not selecting any masks or anything like that. This is just a temporary layer. I'm going to go ReMask. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to identify which area I want to keep and which area I want to get rid of. And so the way I do that is I use this blue brush, and then I just come along and I just loosely paint, because this isn't something where I'm trying to, do a big poster and remove curly hair from against a tree or something like that. I'm just wanting to improve the top part of this image. So I'll just kind of take a wider brush, paint through here. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get a little bit of the area I want to keep and a little bit of the area I want to remove. Just kind of define that border. And then what I'll come in and do here is use the red fill and say, I want to get rid of this. So this is saying get rid of all the thing that's red, keep everything that's in green. And the blue represents the border between the two. So that's where we want ReMask to do the hard work to figure out what's the difference. So you click on Compute Mask, and it creates that mask for you really quick. So these really difficult areas to mask are nicely taken care of for you. And again, if we wanted to get it more precise, we could zoom in and we can use this really cool dual color selection tool and do a lot of neat stuff, but I'm not going to dive into that today. And you can come over here and see this is what's going to cut and this is what's going to keep. So I'm going to say OK. And what that's done is it's created a layer mask for us. And what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to control click that layer mask, because I actually want to create a selection for that layer mask. And then I'm going to use the standard Photoshop filter called Photo Filter. And I'm going to choose the cooling filter to make that blue. That's a little more blue than I want. So I'm going to just pull this down to around 20%, 19%, somewhere in there. And this is just whatever to your taste in terms of how much you do that. And I can get rid of these two temporary layers that I had. And so now what I have is just doesn't look quite as boring. I don't like that kind of yellow kind of cast to it. Just gives it a little bit blue. And again, you can tone it down. You can always bring it down a little bit more if you want. But what I'm going to do now is I've got this area down here in the reflection that I don't want to not think about either. It's kind of bad when you do something up here and have it reflected and you don't see some consistency. So I'm going to actually take care of that. And again, that's where ReMask comes in handy. So I'm going to create a new layer, and just for helping me make sure I get the right stuff to select. And then I'm going to do ReMask. And same process, but this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint around this little area here in the lake. And again, you don't need to be super precise for typical use. And if you're going to be putting this as a giant poster that people are going to be standing inches away from, pixel peeping, then you need to spend a little bit more time. But times you're putting it on the web, this is plenty. So I've eliminated everything but this little puddle here. And then click Compute. And if I go see, this is what I'm going to keep, and that's what I'm going to cut. This little gray area shows what we're doing there. So now we're going to have that reflection, and I'm going to control click that to select the reflection. And I'm going to come in here to this layer that we had before, say Edit Fill, and I'm going to say white. So what that does is it adds that selection we had to this area over here. And because I have these other layers, you can't see it, so I'm going to just take these, get rid of it. So now you see I have the blue in there. And if I decided, I don't really want it to be that much. Depending on how the order I could have done that, I could have done a fade fill if I just did it immediately after. What I could do is I can just take a brush, like my 30% brush that I had earlier, and then just paint it in. Let's do a big circle because I have the selection. And my painting is going to be restricted just to the selection. So I can say, okay, let's add that. Let's maybe add a little bit more. And each time I paint over, it's going to bring a little bit more down. So say, okay, let's maybe go again, no, maybe a little bit, 80%, yeah. You can kind of just go back and forth as to whatever, is the right amount for you. And, basically adjust that to taste. And I'm not going to put a whole lot of blue in there, just a little tiny bit, because essentially what I want to do is I want to have just enough color in there. Actually, bring it down a little bit. Just enough color in. You can feel it, but it's not going to be quite the same tone as that. Maybe a little bit less. Let's see, 10%. Oops. Let me repeat that 1 second here. Brush. And so you can adjust that and fool around with it to your taste. And so that's before and after. And if you decide, hey, I did a little bit too much, you don't have to fool all the masking again. You can just come in here and maybe lower the opacity a little bit. So now the other thing we want to do is one more kind of finishing touch on here. Actually, 2 more touches. We're going to come to this top layer. We're going to create another working layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here, filter, black and white effects. And I'm not going to make this black and white. I want to show you a trick. And what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to choose one of my favorites that I have. You can choose any value you want, or any black and white you want. This actual demo, it's not too much. You just want something kind of neutral. And I'm going to come in here, choose OK. And what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to come into the blending mode, and I'm going to choose soft light. And it makes it look really nasty at first. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower my opacity here down to around 30% maybe. And if you look, it just kind of makes it a little bit more contrasty, a little bit more pop. And if you did a toned image that was more sepia based and stuff, it'll add a little warmth. So it's kind of a common trick that people do. Some people will do it with selecting channels, some people do it with black and white effects. There's various different ways to do it. They're just kind of similar to you use Nik software or seen Nik software demo, the tonal contrast. It just kind of gives a little bit more mid-tone punch. And then we're going to call this one here B&W Effects 2. And then last but not least, we're going to go into lens effects.
Hey, Ron?
Yep.
Can you explain how you're making those layers?
Oh, sure.
Because,
yep.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Not a problem. So what I'm doing is I'm using a shortcut key on the PC, Control-Alt-Shift-E. And I believe on the Mac, it's Command-Alt-Shift-E. And that just says take all the layers below and combine them into a single new layer. And I do that frequently is just to create a working layer to make sure that I'm not having any issues with, I forgot to check sample all layers or anything like that. And so next up here, I'm going to come into Topaz Lens Effects again. And I'm going to use, lo and behold, a lens effect. And I'm actually going to create fog, which is, you might say, that's kind of weird. You did all the time getting rid of it, rid of the fog, and then our haze, and now you're putting it back. But actually, I kind of like, this is kind of a dreary day. You can kind of get the feeling in the image it's a dreary day. And there's lots of things I can do. I can add more to the image to adjust that. But I kind of thought, it's going to be cool, actually, to just kind of have a little bit of a hazy, cloudy day, or foggy day. And this might be a little too much. This is like, especially if you ever have a Golden Gate Bridge picture on a kind of blah day, but you don't have the cool fog rolling in. This is kind of a fun way to bring it back. And so you can adjust how much fog you use. And this is just a taste. And so I thought this was kind of a fun effect to do. You can determine how far it goes down. I mean, generally your fog's not, you don't see it really close to you. It's kind of the farther you go out, the more fog you get. And so you can use the transition to determine that. And there's a lot of adjustments that you can make here. But it's a fun little filter to play around with. And so if you decide, hey, I like it, you can leave it. If not, delete it. But I thought this was just kind of a fun way to process this image. And so let's go on to another image. This time we're going to talk about detail and simplify. Oops. Okay, so here's an image that's got some potential, but let's actually do this here. But it doesn't really have much pop. It's a little bit blah right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into detail, and there's multiple ways I can edit this image, but let's say I'm pretty happy with it. I just kind of want to give it a little bit more oomph and kind of bring out all this nice texture that's in this image. So I'm going to come in here to detail. And let's see, let's get this. For the demo, I've made this a small image, so I can do one-to-one, but generally I would click on fit. And I'm going to come down to the style. I'm going to be in the stylized detail collection, and I'm actually going to choose sunset one. There is actually a fall landscape one, but I like the sunset better. And this kind of gives it a little bit nicer color, a little bit too much sharpening for my taste. And then a lot of that's because this is a tiny image. If I had the full-size image rather than this little small working sample, and I looked at it at 100%, it'd be fine. But the smaller the file, the more exaggerated the sharpening is going to be. So for this one, I'm going to just come down here and adjust the details a little bit. So I'm going to bring this down about -0.5, medium detail. And again, I'm just sliding these based on what feels right, somewhere around there. And large detail, I'm going to bring this up. Now I've sort of pre-marked what I chose before. The idea is just to kind of adjust it to the taste. And now you see it's not quite so crunchy like it was before. And then I usually don't use this tone option here, but color, this particular one actually adds a little bit of color, and I'm actually going to adjust that a little bit. I'm going to make it a little bit cool. It's a little bit too yellow because I shot this one using my shade white balance, so it's a little bit more orangey than I want it to be after I apply this effect. So I'm going to just cool it off a little bit, adjust the tint just a little bit, and then just kind of boost the saturation up a little bit. And I'll talk again about saturation boost in another one, what the difference between those are. This is not a good image to demonstrate that, but I do have one that does really help. And then I look at it and I say, okay, this is pretty decent, but it's still maybe a little bit more crunchy back here than I want. And really, there's not much detail or color back there. So I'm going to come over here to the effects masks. And this is really cool, especially if you're working from Lightroom where you don't have any masking native to Lightroom. You can do it directly in detail. So this is why you would use this product to do your sharpening versus just using Lightroom directly, is that you can actually create a mask and target your sharpening to wherever you want it. I could invert the mask and not have any sharpening, just add it where I want, or I can leave it all there and then remove where I want it. And so I'm just going to come back here and just kind of tone this area down, and you see that it creates a gray blob. And that's black conceals and white reveals. And so what this is doing is it's looking at all the settings that I have here for flow and opacity and so on. And so I can adjust these to determine my settings for my brush that I'm using here. And this is just a quick example to show you that, hey, this feature's here, and you can target your specific image to do that. So now I'm going to just hit OK. And one of the people, sometimes people ask me, it's like, well, why don't you just always hit apply and do all your stuff in one app if you're going to go in it multiple times? And personally, if I'm using Photoshop, I like to keep the layers. I like to be able to go back in time and make different decisions. And I'll generally, with my layers, I'll make notes and say that this was detail 3. I'll specify the version, so that way, if there's a different version, maybe I can go back and redo it using a newer version. Maybe it has some new features that are improvement over the predecessor. And I used the Sunset 1 preset. And then sometimes I'll even go in and make little notes about some of the changes that I made. You can also use a smart filter, but smart filters tend to be slow, and actually personally not a big fan of smart filters due to some bugs that you can also get where they get confused, can't find your plugin, and your image doesn't re-render properly well anymore. And so it's also a lot faster to do it this way. So I've got that change. Now, I could be done with that, but I'm actually going to do a stylized effect on this. And this is just to show off Simplify, because Simplify is kind of a fun product that a lot of people don't know about. And so let's just show you a couple of cool things you could do with Simplify. So we're going to come down here, Simplify 3. And we're going to, first of all, look at this one, Simulate Buzz Simplifier Effect. And right off the bat, this is kind of a cool effect. I mean, if I did nothing else to it, I kind of like this look. I'm not going to play around with any of these because this is just a preset that I wanted to show you is there. Real nice artistic stylized look. So fun one to play around with. When you have that image that you're kind of happy with, but you feel like a little trite, could use a little something different. That's a fun one to play around with. And this painting colorful is kind of a fun one too that I like. And that's what I'm going to play with today. But again, some people may hate this, some people may like it. It's kind of a fun effect. In Asia, there's a lot of anime, and so I just thought, this would be kind of fun to have like this little anime type of scene. There's no anime character in it, but just kind of an environment scene. And so what I'm going to do is go make some adjustments over here and simplify size. You can see if I crank this up, crank this down, you see what it does. And so kind of lose detail, add detail. And I'm going to go make an adjustment here around 0.36. And this is going to leave amount of detail where I can still see some of the trees, but not all the grit and stuff on the steps and so on. Technically, for this preset, I didn't need to use that sharpening, or that essentially what I did in detail was sharpening. I didn't need to do that for this one, but just as an example to use both together, I did. Because I'm going to actually take away a lot of the detail in this particular image. And then what I'm going to do next is I'm going to come down here to Feature Boost, which again, you can kind of see what this does. And also notice what it does here in the back. As I kick this up, it kind of makes some of those darker areas blotch out more black. So I'm going to pull this back down to around 1.61. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get a balance of keeping the green detail and not having too much harsh shadows. And again, I found all of this just through experimentation. I was just dragging sliders and turn detail strength off, which pretty much kills all these settings down here. And now it's starting to feel a little bit more like a cartoon look, which is what I'm going for this particular image. And then an adjustment panel. Because this is really cartoony, I'm actually going to amp up the saturation. You'd never do this in a normal image, but your cartoons tend to be really saturated, so I'm actually going to just amp this guy all the way up. And that kind of makes these greens become a little bit more glowing, which, if you got kids, you watch cartoons, that's kind of the thing, is everything's kind of super amped up colors. And then what's happening here down this edges is that there's these different effects, and I believe this one uses color line normal, but there's essentially, it's like, what kind of pencil type of effect do you want to use? This monoline normal is a little bit more detailed, and so you can just go through and choose whichever effect that you want. And the painting colorful preset just does color line normal. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some adjustments to how the drawing happens in here. And so for my edge strength, again, I can bring it down. So basically, as I bring this up, I start seeing more details. As I bring it down, less details. So I kind of want to make it not quite so busy. So I'm going to actually adjust this to around 2.75. I got to let go each time, see what it's going to do, somewhere around here. And then I'm going to come into simplify edge, and again, I can turn it down, turn it up. See what it's doing? It's kind of like the opposite effect. And I'm going to actually adjust this one down to around 0.25. Again, these were just settings that I did before. And then we have this reduce weak. Bring that down about here. And this is kind of giving me the look that I want. Again, this isn't for everybody, but it's kind of a fun, different way to process your image. And again, those who've been to Japan know this is kind of something you might see as a background for an anime. So I thought it'd be a fun way to demonstrate how to do that. And I click OK. And like all things, I can always play with my opacity and kind of bring back some of the underlying details and so on. So where I still have a little bit more detail from the original image, but also this effect, or I can leave it just the effect. And so when I was experimenting with this, I kind of liked it somewhere around 70%. So again, just a fun, different way to process your image using a feature and product.
Ron, I was going to say, before you X out of that, can you show the before and after?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Thank you. We had some people asking that for the last one.
Sure, let me actually get from here. That's the before and after there. Actually, I lost my original. I actually forgot to make a copy for the layer. So let me go to my history window.
Thank you.
And then just say, that was before, that was after there. And actually, I can go before here and after here. So that shows you just the before and after with using detail, and then the before and after using simplify. So again, this is, and especially back here in these flags, it's really cool. It feels like this is a cartoon that somebody spent a lot of time drawing on. And a lot of times you'll see on the web people do these really beautiful illustrations of people, and you think, wow, man, they're really talented artists. They're not really talented artists, actually. What they're doing is they're using simplify on their image, and depending on how you shot it, especially working with the black and white, these can come out really good. Just using simplify without having any artistic ability. And for those of us who want to be able to draw something like this and don't have the ability, oh man, it's so cool. And I could never draw this in a billion years, but I can do it in simplify, and I think it's really fun. My son's a big cartoon junkie, and he loves the way these trees look through here for this demo. So we'll go ahead and save that. And then let's go get another one. How are we doing on time here?
We have about 10 minutes before I want to go ahead and give it to the Q&A, go into the Q&A session.
All right, so let's go play with black and white effects. In case you're noticing a theme here, yes, I was last night I was robbing from my Japan trip pictures. Just thought they would be interesting ones to show. I'm actually going to be doing a photo tour in Japan next year, Kyoto, Japan. This is during the fall colors that they, in the evenings, they light up all the temples and stuff. And so if you like this, be sure to contact me offline, and you can learn more about the trip to Japan we'll be doing. So what I'm going to do here is, this is a cool color image, but I actually wasn't happy with the colors. I thought they were kind of cheesy, but I really like this image, and there's kind of a lot of cool things happening with the light. So when I got my hands on black and white effects too to review it, I decided to give this an image shot and see what it would look like with black and white effect in black and white. So into black and white effects, and if you haven't used black and white effects too, check it out. This has got some really cool stuff. And one of the things that I love the most is that people ask me, it's like, Ron, there's like 1,000 stinking presets. How do you pick which one you want? It's like I can spend all night long trying to figure out the presets, and I agree. That's one of the things that frustrates me, and why we get stuck in the pattern of using the same things all over again, is because it's just a pain in the butt to go find new stuff but not time to do it. But what I can do in black and white effects that I wish others would do is I can click on that little thumbnail thingy, and it creates big, things I can actually see, not little microscopic thumbnails, like big honking thumbnails, and it tells me this is the effect that's being applied. And I can look and say, hey, I like this one. This is really cool. And when I click it, it applies it. Hot diggity. I don't have to spend a lot of time going through all these, and I can do every one that I want. And the cool thing is that I can even come do this on my favorites. And that's what I do is I go through and all those and narrowed it down to these are the 3 that I think I'm going to use most often. And so I'm not overwhelmed with choices, and I can say, I think for this image that's the one that I want to use. And bam, I'm done. Now, generally when you do an image like this, you can have a starting point, but there's always some stuff that's just not quite right. It's a little bit dark up here. It's kind of lose a little bit of this dragon. Excuse me. And so we're going to work on this a little bit. Now, one thing I want to point out, because people tend to give me crap about this when I try to demo this, is that there's this funky banding happening on the wall here. And they're like, oh, is the product doing that? I'm going to actually exit out just to prove to people that, no, that's actually in the image. Excuse me. If I were to actually show you the raw image and zoom in, it's actually shadows and there's some stucco that's kind of peeled on the wall here that's created that. So don't think that the plugin's actually messing up the image. This is actually something that's just in there. So anyway, getting back to that, I've got my collection again. Just go, oops, wrong one. Favorites. I'm going to choose high contrast, and this is so fast that I actually will go always check them out and just double check. And never can really come down here to my favorites. I'll actually just go click on that and see each one. I can also, as you're seeing here, as I hover over these, it'll show me like a big thumbnail as well. So let's close that out of the way. I'm going to go mess around a little bit with basic exposure, and I'm going to show you. Going back here in my notes. Sorry, guys, got out of track. Excuse me. Adaptive exposure. That's the one I wanted to go to. And what I wanted to show here is kind of interesting. Is that I'm going to bring up the exposure a little bit. Watch what happens when I kick this regions up real high. Oops. Must have missed a step. Last night when I was doing this, I was seeing, I guess you can see it a little bit here. You'll start seeing these halos along the tree line. So if you've got a preset that you use and you're seeing halos, the way you do that can try to eliminate those halos is you back this regions down. You see how the halos go away. There's a little bit more light here during the day in my studio than it was last night when I was working on these. So my apologies there for a minute. I didn't see the halos. And so people always ask me, what the heck's that regions thing's for? And honestly, there's some apps that it has this. I can't really see the difference. But this is a great example of what you can see. It's basically breaking down and analyzing your image in smaller chunks. And in this case, it helped us get rid of those halos without any masking or heavy-duty lifting. And then, let's see, I'm going to go in here. There's process details independently, which I'll talk about when I do adjust. But generally for my black and whites, I'll not check this box. And adjust, I almost always check this box because I don't want the effect it creates. But in black and whites tends to be the opposite because we tend to like more contrasty black and whites. And Nicole can give you more details about exactly what that one does. And then let's see. So we're kind of getting low on time. I'm going to just kind of rush ahead to down here on finishing touches and silver paper tone. One of the things that people ask me is that, like, hey, I kind of like the little selenium, or excuse me, sepia tone. And so if you come over here, click on these helpful icons, it'll tell you what it's going to do. And it's basically saying one's going to adjust the silver, which is the gray tone and dark tones, and the other one's going to be the paper and the white tones. And I can actually come in here and make some adjustments to kind of get that kind of browner tone from here. and I can adjust the hue of that tone by making an adjustment here. And so if you like a little bit more brown than gray image, or a little bit more blue, this is kind of the way you do that, green, blue, and so on. You can experiment, decide, hey, I didn't like that. I can hit reset and get it all back to where it was again. Kind of a new, nice feature in black and white effects is that there's a local reset feature. And then you can go in and add film grain. They've got a lot of different films that can simulate the effect of the grain from those films. It's not really so much simulating the film so much because you've already got some adjustments here. It's really just giving you the kind of grain where you can add it in manually. For black and whites, a lot of times we like to burn the edges a little bit. It's kind of a common thing that was done in the darkroom. So I can come in here and make it brighter or darker, and then I'll adjust my size. I just maybe do like a little bit on the bottom, kind of keep the viewer's eye in this page so they don't fly out. I've got a lot of nice, defined details around here, but this bottom, you kind of fly off the bottom. So it's just kind of giving you a little bit more definition to keep the viewer's eye in the frame. And you can click OK, and we've got a nice before and after. And I think this image is actually a lot stronger as a black and white than it is a color. And there's a lot of stuff I can show you in this app, but unfortunately we don't have time for it today. So let's go ahead and close that. And let's jump on to our next one. This is Clean and Lens Effects. And I'm going to duplicate my layer. Filter. Clean. And what I'm going to do for this image is that it was an interesting image, but I thought it'd be fun to stylize this one just a little bit, but not go too over the top. So I'm going to go to 1:1 here, and I click on the Stylize Details. And it creates this cool effect that if you've used Photoshop, it's kind of similar to the oil painting effect, but actually I like this one a little bit better. And you can come over here to this edges and adjust the way the effect works. I thought this was really kind of a fun way to make this a little bit more interesting and make it different. In case somebody has the same shot, my shot's a little bit different than theirs. For those who are wondering, yes, this is actually a 3-image HDR that was combined in the Nick collection by Google's HDR Effects 2. And I'm actually going to skip the lens effects. I just use lens effects to come in and add a little bit more saturation and cool the image to kind of get rid of some of this warm tone. But I actually really liked how this one looked because all those details in the leaves are kind of lost. But when I add this effect in, it kind of adds it back. Yet you can still see the detail of the bamboo. So I thought it was really kind of a fun way to give this something, image a little bit more oomph and impact. So we're going to rush on over here to our last one, and this is Adjust. And this is an image that when I took it, I thought, man, this is going to be so awesome. And then I looked at it in the camera, or I looked at the raw file when I got back home, and I was like, oh, man, this is kind of blah. It looked so much more interesting in real life. And granted, a lot of things had faded, but I said, I wish there was really something better I could do with this. So Adjust is my go-to app. I'm not using it very much today, but this is the one that I go to most frequently in my workflow. And where I like to go is I'm used to Adjust For, so I use the Adjust For preset list, and then Spicify. This is what I like to use for something like this. Now it looks nasty right now, and here's why I'm showing you this so you can kind of go make some of the changes that I would typically do. And so what I do is I go into the global adjustments, and first thing I do, I talked about this earlier, is I turn off this process details independently. It kind of gets rid of that weird, crunchiness. Or hum here, sorry about that. That weird crunchiness. So a lot of times, a lot of effects and Adjust, they look a little bit too weird and crunchy for me. So I'll go do this process details independently. And it's like, okay, that's more like it. That's what I wanted. And then for this particular image, all about saturation. I want a lot more oomph. And I'm going to actually get in now and finally show you this saturation boost. If you hover over the slider, it says increase or decrease the saturation of less saturated colors in the image. And it's basically the kind of flat midtones. And so if I look at this green area back here, I want to give that a little bit more oomph. And I want to do that independently. So it's doing for the purples and so on here, independent of the overall saturation. Let's come back. And when I played around with this last night, I got this around about 1.56 or 5.4, somewhere around there. And I, right off the bat, big improvement from before with the mid-tone saturation and the default settings for Spicify. But let's go ahead and amp it up a little bit more, because this image is all about color. And so I'm going to go a little bit, some people's opinion, maybe a little bit over the top, but to me, this image is all about the wow impact of the colors. So I'll kick that one up. And again, I just experiment dragging these back and forth to come up with what I want. And I'm pretty happy with that. I'm actually going to come in here to the noise, because when you use Spicify or Psychedelic, and these ones that I use frequently, they do generate some noise. Not so much in this one, but if I actually zoomed in over into this corner, I'll see in the window panes, and this is really hard to see on the video, but there's some noise in here. And since I already own DeNoise, it says, okay, this is just the default basic noise reduction. It says use the advanced noise reduction of DeNoise, which is a little bit better at preserving details, and I get the best noise reduction that I can from the bundle when I check that. So I always check that off and just kind of get rid of some of that extra noise that was introduced. And lastly, we're going to go down here to finishing touches. There's a lot of yellow going on, and I'm actually going to give it a little bit more. I want to kind of make it feel a little bit more golden, and so I'm going to amp this up to around 10 or 11. Makes all these golds come pop out a little bit more. And I probably fight with these a little bit in Photoshop on the final image, but what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cheat and just use a little vignette to kind of hide that a little bit. And the way I do my vignetting is that I usually set my strength to 1 and my size, transition, to 0. So I get this little box. I can actually adjust my size. What I want to do is I want to get my size to about where it covers those edges, and then I'm going to dial this back down. And so for my strength, I'm going to come right here. I don't want it to be too obvious, but I want it to be enough just to kind of fill in that a little bit. And then the transition, I can bring it out to around 3, just so it's not quite so defined. And I can turn this on and off, and you can see it just kind of helps hold the viewer's eye in there a little bit and kind of fills in these little gaps. And I'll hit OK. This is a full-size image, so it's taking a little bit longer than the others. It's not that Adjust is really slow. It's just that this is a really big file that I have. And actually, I think because I'm running the webinar software, it's actually hanging a little bit there. Yeah, normally it wouldn't be quite that slow, but the webinar software seems to be making my machine sluggish today. So if I come into the history, you can see the before and after. Huge difference. And if I was smart, I would have created another layer, but I was in a rush here. I could reduce the opacity if I decided I kind of went overboard with my saturation. But really big difference, and it's pretty much how I did my final image for this one. Added a little bit of sharpening with detail, and I was done. So that's it. Let's go ahead and take some questions.
All right, and let's take a look at some of these questions that are coming through. All right. Do you usually work with raw files?
Yes. For the demo, just to make things quicker, I have scaled down my images, but yes, I normally work with raw image.
Okay, great.
Just by the way, I'll convert it from Adobe Camera Raw. It'll be 16-bit ProPhoto RGB color space.
Okay, thank you. And John wanted to know if you were using a pen or mouse.
I use a mouse for most of it. Anytime I do the drawing, like for the ReMask stuff, I was using my Wacom tablet.
Okay, thanks. Let's see here. Richard was asking what were the settings for the black and white preset you used on the first image, and I think it was a personal preset that you were using, if I'm not mistaken.
No, actually, that one was high contrast. Oh, wait, I said high contrast 2. Let me go open that up real quick.
And Peter, actually, a couple people were asking, like, what kind of presets would you recommend for that extra punch? And would you recommend that high contrast type of preset?
Oh, so that the way I did that, yeah, the black and white trick. Yeah, you can use pretty much any of the ones that are kind of neutral. The more neutral ones, like from the traditional collection, are best. And yes, there's actually a built-in preset called High Contrast 2, and that's what I used for the demo today. I just marked it as a favorite so I could find it quickly rather than having to dig through all these. But I think it's probably in the traditional collection or somewhere
It is.
like that. Yeah. So anyway.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Okay, Susanna asks, how long does it usually take you to finish your post-processing for fine art images?
I'm pretty anal retentive, so 7 to 10 hours per image.
Okay. Let's see here.
Stuff I do for the blog, by the way, is about 30 minutes. So a lot of people give me crap that, oh, you missed this, and this doesn't look very good, and I blow this up, it looks bad. Yeah, I blog from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. So generally, I'm just spending a quick 30 minutes to illustrate a point like we're doing here in the webinar. But when I actually do my real images for clients and for my personal work, I'll spend a lot more time on them.
Okay, great. Let's see. We have Frank asking if do you find that all images are a candidate for black and white effects, or do you suggest certain ones only?
That's personal preference, but because black and white effects too is so awesome at showing me the presets. A lot of times after I've done processing an image as a color image, I'll usually process it first, get it where it looks nice as a color. Then I'll just open up black and white effects and just check it out. Because usually what I've done for color is, I've looked at all the tones, I have really good dynamic range to the image, and black and white effects likes that. You have a nice black and white tonal range, and I'll just open it up, go look at those thumbnails of what it looks like, and if I like it, I'll click on it, check it out. Sometimes I'll do a blend where I'll just kind of desaturate the image a little bit with it. So yeah, it's pretty common.
We do have several people asking again what the shortcut was to combine all your layers into that stamp layer.
Yeah, and Adobe doesn't really make that one very easy because it's not on the little little menu here. It's Control Alt Shift E, and on the Mac it's Command Alt Shift E.
Perfect. Thank you. Grace said, do you have, or let's see here, she had asked earlier to explain the use of Photo Effects Lab. And do you ever use Photo Effects Lab?
Yes, I do use Photo Effects Lab. It's for those of you who don't have Lightroom or Photoshop and you want to use the Topaz stuff. As you can see, the more contrast. One of the reasons I showed lens effects using just some real basic stuff, you can get away without having any Adobe product with Photo Effects Lab. Unfortunately, that's not included in the bundle, if I remember right. But that's a real cool way to bring all of your Topaz stuff together, have layers, and do a lot of cool things with it.
All right. Thanks again for joining us.
Hey, no problem.